All right, that was rough. No doubt about it. That was rough. Not the way you want to end a game. Oh my gosh, the Mets were right there, guys. They were right there from winning this game. Oh my gosh. I mean, losing the finale 8-7 to the Seattle Mariners. The Mets have their first series loss of the season. You knew it was bound to happen. You weren't going to go the entire season not losing a single series. It was going to happen eventually, but I mean, oh my God, it couldn't be any closer. It was impossible to be any closer than this. I mean, coming down to a check swing with the bases loaded and 2 outs and a full count. And if Pete just holds the bag a little bit more back towards himself, the Mets tie the game, and who knows what happens next. They probably end up winning it because the momentum would have went the Mets' way so much. It'd be hard to see the Mariners capitalizing off of that. But I'll tell you what, this started out, it was a really interesting game because of all the lead changes, all the back and forth, so many momentum shifts. You feel good about the Mets when they go in front 1-0 with the Francisco Lindor home run. But then you just see the Mariners in that third inning is where they really got started. Carlos Carrasco losing the command on his secondary pitches. He was not able to get them over for strikes. So the Seattle Mariners found themselves in really good hitters counts where he's just throwing it and bam, they're hitting line drives. I mean, they were hitting the ball really hard off Carrasco. And it started in that third inning. He was able to limit the damage, keep it 1-1. You're like, all right, the Mets have a chance here. But then the same thing happened in that fourth inning. And the biggest example was that bases loaded at bat against Mike Ford, where Carrasco falls behind in the count because he just can't get the changeup over. He can't get the slider over. So he had no choice but to throw Mike Ford a fastball over the part of the plate because with the bases loaded, he didn't want to walk him. He had to challenge him. And Mike Ford is a fastball hitter. And what does it turn into? A 2-run, extra base hit from Mike Ford. And, the Mets, they slowly chipped away, got back in it. They had those two-run triples take the lead. But once again, I mean, the Mariners struck right back. Chasen Shreve was able to help Carrasco get out of that fifth inning. But then in that sixth inning, Julio Rodriguez hits that bomb of a home run, 114 off the bat. And then Drew Smith comes in. He shows up with 2-run home to Cal Riley, who's not a great hitter. So, I mean, Drew Smith, he had got up to this wonderful start this season, gave up his first run of the year on Friday against Seattle in the first game of the series, ended up Mets losing that game. And then today, if you're going to give up a home run there, not what you would have predicted, but I'm sure if you're a Mariners fan, you were not predicting that Patrick Mazeika was going to home run last night. So baseball could be a little tricky at times like that. And then you had Julio Rodriguez get another RBI the next inning. And the Mets were on the verge of making this huge comeback here. I mean, at the end of the game, Eduardo Escobar triple, and McNeil brings them home. And Mazeika's doing some weird stuff, bouncing off the bag at second base. Mazeika magic, the thing he does. And here's one thing I want to say that is very interesting to me is what is the deal with Dom Smith? I think that's the question we really have got to ask ourselves at this particular point in time because you had Patrick Mazeika batting in the first place, which, I mean, I know he gets lucky. You want to call him clutch. Maybe he's wearing number 4 now. Is he trying to get some of that Wilmer Flores clutchness to himself? And what I really wonder is just like, if you're not going to really use Dom Smith that much, should the Mets consider carrying 3 catchers or just somebody that could somehow play catcher in case of an emergency? Because when Brandon Nimmo got that hit, imagine if Travis Jankowski was on the bases instead of Patrick Mazeika. There's a pretty good chance that maybe Jankowski could have come around and score, and the Mets would have had a tie ball game, and then you go into extra innings. You never know what happens. Like I said, you would have had all the momentum. So I kind of feel pretty good about the Mets' chances winning had this game gone to extra innings. But, I mean, what are they really doing with Dom Smith? Because ever since that Sunday night game where he, took Robinson Cano's job, maybe Dom's going to get it going now. We have just seen absolutely, positively nothing from this guy at the plate. And we know he's not bringing anything on the field. He's a pretty good defensive first baseman, but Pete Alonso is one of your best players, and he's going to be your first baseman. So no point to have Dom play there. He's not playing the outfield. He's not playing anywhere else. He's not coming on, for speed purposes. So Dom Smith is a waste of a roster spot right now. I mean, that's the point it's come down to, where it's like the Mets had a better chance of winning this game if they had 3 catchers, to have Travis Jankowski run for Patrick Mazeika, than to have Dom Smith on this roster at all, because his hitting is not good enough to pinch hit for anybody besides the catchers. And like I said, you don't have that third catcher, so they couldn't even do that in this scenario. You're not pitching down for anybody else. I mean, if anything, you might have Luis Guillorme bat over Dom Smith at this point. At least you know Guillorme is going to give you a pretty good at bat. He could put the ball in play. There's a good chance he's going to draw a walk, at least make the pitcher work. It's gotten to the point now where it's like I would rather see Luis Guillorme comes to the plate than Dom Smith. And that's just the way it's gotten. Yeah, they lost their first series 8-7. It was a heartbreak. I mean, a part of me was like, oh, maybe Pete didn't go. Like losing a game on a check swing. Oh, that's about as brutal as it gets. It's as rough as it gets, especially because on the first glance, I'm just hoping that it wasn't a swing, and you're just waiting to see that umpire. You're waiting for the camera to shoot to the first base side to see what the umpire has to say. And he said he swung, and on replay, unfortunately, he did swing. As much as I wanted to think he did it, as much as I wanted to believe something else, no, it was true. He definitely did swing. So that's not the way you want to go out. But I'll tell you what, the bullpen in this game and in this series was not good. I mean, there is no other way around it. I mean, we talked about it, but Chasen Shreve giving up another home run, back-to-back days where Chasen Shreve is giving up a long ball. And then you had Drew Smith give up a home run. Joely Rodriguez gives up a run. Colin Holderman was able to throw a scoreless ninth. He had to work around some traffic to do it. But we talked about Drew Smith giving up the run on Friday. Shreve gave up the home run yesterday. Some of those runs came from Lugo. But, I mean, golly, the bullpen had been so strong for this team for the majority of the season. But this weekend, we saw the cracks in it, particularly Shreve and Drew Smith. Those were the two guys, not named Edwin Diaz, that throughout the course of the year were doing a really, really good job of just consistently putting up zeros, no matter the role you put them in, whether it was multi-innings, guys on base, inherited runners, things like that. They were able to get the job done. This weekend, we had not seen that. So it's going to be very important that these guys get closer to what they were prior to this weekend, because if this becomes a trend, the Mets are in trouble. And speaking of the Mets are in trouble, the Tylor Megill injury this morning came out of nowhere. I mean, what the heck was that? All of a sudden, he's got lat inflammation, and then the Mets decided to delete the tweet. Oh, wait, it's bicep inflammation. And we're like, wait a minute. What's going on here? Just all of a sudden, Tylor Megill has bicep inflammation, and now he's on the injury list. And Colin Holderman got called up. We saw him already. So now you're down Trevor Williams, your long reliever, and it looks like Trevor Williams is going to make the start tomorrow. So Trevor Williams, I think that him making that long relief appearance after Tylor Megill's last start against the Nationals, where he struggled. So Trevor Williams had to come in and pick up the slack, and he definitely pitched pretty good. And I feel like because of that performance, that earned Buck Showalter's trust to the point where Buck was like, okay, I guess he could be our starter in this scenario, because ideally you'd want to use David Peterson, because Pearson had been that extra starter this year for the most part. But David Pearson just pitched in AAA on Friday, so he would not have that 5 days rest that you would need if you are a traditional starting pitcher. Even somebody like Thomas Sapucki, who I know that's a name that we don't want to hear, he's been doing much better in the minor leagues this season. He's made some adjustments. He's throwing the ball harder. He also pitched very, very recently, so he would not be ready either. So the Mets had to go from within, because there isn't much else as far as major league ready starting pitching depth in the minor leagues. So you're going to have Trevor Williams really step up and be the guy that is going to have to pitch for the Mets. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this works. I wonder if maybe Jake Reed will piggyback after Trevor Williams. I mean, you hope that Williams can go 4 to 5 innings tomorrow. You're playing a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, who are a really good team. So that's going to be quite a test for Trevor Williams. And it's just going to be a test for the Mets in general. I wonder if after this start from Trevor Williams, maybe next time around the rotation, we see David Peterson. I think that's all going to be dependent on how Trevor Williams pitches, on how these other guys do. It's like, okay, can we keep Colin Holderman, and we rather have David Pearson get that roster spot? So I think that there's going to have to be a lot of moving pieces. And it's just really, it stinks that Carlos Carrasco did not have his best stuff today. So you had to use the bullpen more today than you would have liked, because you know you're going to need the bullpen tomorrow. And the Mets still don't have an off day for quite a while. So this is going to be a really big test for the Mets going into this next stretch of games. You know, you're going to go to Colorado, which is just a hitter-friendly ballpark. That's going to be a slugfest. And, you know, like I said, their next day off is not until May 26th. So you're going in with a shorthanded bullpen with some injuries. And the Mets cannot afford any more injuries on the pitching side. Like I said, particularly in the starting rotation, because you don't want to get to the point where, okay, we are going to have Thomas Szapucki make some starts. Even if he's shown some improvement in the minor leagues, that's something you want to avoid at all costs. So that's going to be something really important to keep in mind. I wonder how much Buck would push Trevor Williams tomorrow. That probably is going to depend on how the offense does. If we see a game where the offense isn't scoring at all and Trevor Williams is getting beat up a little bit, he might push Trevor Williams, because it's like we cannot risk the other days after tomorrow to make tomorrow a little more competitive. It's all going to depend on how the game goes. But I mean, there were a few good signs. I think, again, just showing that this team is very resilient. This team is not going to give up. And even though they didn't win today, we've seen so many instances this season where they've really put together just these strong comebacks, just putting together good at bat after good at bat, and getting so many different guys to contribute. Last night, Patrick Mazeika. Today you had Eduardo Escobar get it started. You had JD Davis get a big hit. Brandon Nimmo had a huge day today. I mean, that's something that's really going to go under the radar because they didn't win the game. But they got to extend Brandon Nimmo as soon as possible. And I'll tell you what, when Starling Marte struck out, that was a big one. Even just a sack fly, and you're right in this ball game. And then potentially walking Lindor, I thought was really interesting, because we know even though Lindor hit the home run today, he's been struggling the past couple of weeks. And Pete Alonso, he's been swinging a pretty good bat, more so than Lindor the past couple of weeks. So, again, Alonso was right there. It came down to that check swing. So that was really frustrating. But, again, you saw a lot of different guys on this team step up to get the 7 runs. Let's see what we got. It sucks as not to be mad if we're a different team. We don't quit. I knew we were going to lose that the series was not. Yeah. I know. I mean, it's just for the Mets. What's really interesting is that you saw Seattle just hit so many home runs today, and for the Mets, they got that one home run from Lindor today, and that's really it. Because if it's not Lindor, it's not Alonso. It's like you may get a home run here from Mark Hanna, maybe one from Mazeika, maybe one from Nimmo. I mean, Nimmo almost had a home run in the first inning. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if these balls weren't so dead that this ball had like a 9-10 XBA, whatever, that Brandon Nimmo hit to lead off the first inning against Robbie Ray to center field. That was very close to being a home run. So you're just saying to yourself, okay, that's one run there. All of a sudden, it's not 8-7, it's 8-8. I mean, there's so many different things you could play back in your head when you only lose by one run. But it just really is tough for the Mets, because it comes down to the point where they have to string a lot of things together. So that's what makes it really difficult, is that it's like, okay, well, if one guy gets hit, you need the next guy to get hit and next guy to get hit, because you don't have the one player that's coming in there and just hitting it over the fence. So that's something the Mets really got to address. We talked about with somebody like Dom Smith. The last time Dom Smith hit a home run, I think it's been a while since Dom Smith has hit a home run. So if he's going to be DHing when you're facing a righty and JD's DHing facing a lefty, Dom just isn't bringing enough to the table, because it's like the whole point of a DH is to have a really good hitter be there. And Dom Smith has not been a really good hitter this year. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose at this point right now. So it's something they have got to do. I think at the trade deadline, the Mets have got to get a power bat, a guy that has real home run threat power. One of those guys that's so strong that he does not need a juice ball, that no matter what kind of baseball you throw at him, they're going to hit a home run because they have that kind of power. We know Pete Alonso has that type of power, but the Mets got to get somebody else that also has that type of power. And a team that they may not have this particular player that we're talking about right now, but the Arizona Diamondbacks, they intrigue me so much. If they could eventually fall out of contention, they've gone off to a pretty good start, being 18-16. And it's because of how good their pitching has been. And that's where the Mets should want to target. They want to get some depth. Guys like Merrill Kelly, even Madison Bumgarner has pitched much better than in years past. So you will look at those guys, but the real guy stands out. I know Acevedo has brought him up on Mets Weekly, is Dalton Varsho, because here's a guy that has some power. He could play the outfield. He could go behind the plate, catch a little bit. He would have been perfect for the scenario I was talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, you may not necessarily have a traditional catcher, but you have somebody else that could play the catcher position, and it allows you to still kind of have 3 catchers and do the pinch run with Mazeika. You could pinch hit for Mazeika more often or not. So this is really tough. Before the game, Gelbs was talking about Chavez, how they forget about home runs because the baseball is a game. It's on purpose, but they need a balance in that lineup. It's tough because if you have the thing is, you need everybody to be swinging the bat well in order to have that kind of mindset. because when you have Eduardo Escobar in a slump and you have Francisco Lindor, who's pretty much been in the slump, and you have the Dom Smiths of the world and the Tomas Nidos of the world, it's hard to string together hit after hit where Jeff McNeil gets a hit and Tomas Nido strands him there, or Pete Alonso gets a hit and Eduardo Escobar strands him there. I mean, you need somebody to kind of really just get the job done. So I understand the philosophy they're taking, but I just think that at some point they've got to add another bat to really protect Pete Alonso. If Escobar could get hot again, he could be that protection, but right now he just isn't. And you've seen that because they had Mark Canha batting behind Pete Alonso today. And Canha, he's more of a bit of a table setter. So he's not necessarily that protection. And Canha's a guy he's kind of fluctuating a little bit. They'll bat him second, they'll bat him fifth, they'll bat him seventh. The Mets have really not found that same consistent lineup construction yet this season. So I'm really curious to see how they continue to manage that, because until they have the same group of guys step up consistently, it really is hard to get that. Get Winker. I mean, we'll see if the Mariners are – I don't know if the Mariners are going to be looking to sell yet. It's so early in the season, but who knows? I mean, Jesse Winker, he has great power. There's no doubt about it. He's batting .224 this season, and his OPS is .649. So, I mean, let's not act like Jesse Winker is having this phenomenal year. He does have great power, but – I mean, let's be honest here. The guy has not had a tremendous year. He's looked good against the Mets. I mean, that's the other thing, guys. Don't be fooled by how someone plays against the Mets, because by that scenario, it's like, oh my gosh, we should be all over Paul DeJong. We should just get Paul DeJong right now. It's like we're Javi Baez away. Who'd have thought, huh? I mean, yeah, Javi Baez, he's been playing tremendous this season. He has just been absolutely fantastic. So imagine if the Mets had him, with his .216 average right now. Oh, they'd be in good shape. And Javi Baez has just hit so many home runs this year. Oh, my gosh. Have you seen all the home runs he's been hitting? Wow. That would really fix this lineup. I mean, $175 million for that offensive production. Yeah, that would take the Mets to the next level for sure, especially in the long term. We know Baez can help you now, but in the long term, it really just is not going to be the smartest decision. So it's something that they have to consider. But like I said, don't be fooled by how a guy plays against the Mets. We'll see how that goes for Seattle. If Jesse Winker picks it up a little bit, gets on base a little more consistently, and Seattle starts to struggle a little more, then that's what they're going to do. I just don't see a team like Seattle, who made the trade to get Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez. They gave up over $100 million to get Robbie Ray. They called up big prospects like Julio Rodriguez. Like, Seattle is competing. They're trying their best. So they're not one of those teams like the Reds or the Pirates or the Athletics where you're like, okay, we know they're in rebuild. We know they're in sell now mode. Don't forget how close the Mariners were to the wild card this past season. So that's where their mindset is. It's like, okay, we almost made the playoffs last year. Let's try to go about to the next level. It's not about power protection for Alonso, just so they could strike him out. I mean, that's real scary to think about. But again, I mean, the Mets were not going to give $175 million to him. They gave him a fair contract. They went 6 years. So, I mean, that's what's going to happen. JD Martinez is a guy definitely to keep your eye on with the way Boston has struggled. And personally, I anticipate that Boston will continue struggling because, I mean, when you look at their pitching, it's hard to see them go on a winning streak when they have the consistent poor pitching performances that they've had. So JD Martinez, he's going to be available. We know JD Martinez has had a really good history as a DH, as a guy that brings some power to the table. So he's a guy that I definitely think they should look at. The J-Rod Show, Andrew will have a stream at 5:30. So at 5:30, around that time, I'll cut this off. You all could go over to Andrew Acevedo's channel to watch him talk about Julio Rodriguez. He had a big home run. He played a great center field. Had a base running mistake today, a pretty big one, but it definitely was a J-Rod show when he hit that home run, because that was 114 off the bat. You definitely like that. And Lindor had a really nice home run too. I mean, that was an absolute bomb. Even a dead ball wasn't going to stop that one. So that was encouraging to see. And you really just want to see, it's going to be very important for Lindor and Escobar to get closer to where they were at the start of the season, where those guys were really getting the job done, because then you see the team have a much more complete lineup from top to bottom. And again, it was just very frustrating to see the way this game went. Anyone have any other questions, comments, any other takeaways from this weekend? Because again, now the Mets get ready for the St. Louis Cardinals tomorrow, and you're facing Miles Michaelis, who's had a really good season for St. Louis this year. So, and that's not going to be any easy game right there. And then like I said, we know the Cardinals are really good. Do the Cardinals still have revenge on their minds after the dust up with the benches clearing? Are we still going to get Rusty or Stubby, whatever the guy's name was, that fat first base coach that tackled Pete Alonso. I mean, is he going to get involved in the action at all? Yeah, so I think that's going to be really interesting to see. We did see another Mets batter get hit by a pitch. Mark Canha got hit by the elbow guard, but Canha didn't really move that much, and Canha's a guy that is very susceptible to getting hit by pitches. He was at the top of the leaderboard last year, so I didn't really think Seattle was trying to knock him out. So I just wonder if there are inside pitches, if anybody on the Mets does get hit by Cardinals pitching, if we will see another fight. And this is going to be the last time we see the Cardinals, thank God, because we don't want to play them all too much. And like I said, it's just going to be an interesting series where we're thinking it's going to be Trevor Williams. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Trevor Williams because we didn't see him warm up at any point in time this game. So that kind of gives you the idea that Buck's like, all right, we want to save this guy as much as we can. We need him to start tomorrow. So I think that is the direction that the Mets are going to go. And I also think that that's when we're going to see Jake Reed. And you probably see Jake Reed go maybe 2 to 3 innings because he's another guy the Mets avoided today. They went to Colin Holderman before they went to Jake Reed. So, again, I think that gives us a pretty good idea of where Buck is looking right now as far as who is going to be pitching. And, again, at least you love to see the fight. I mean, this has kind of become a consistent thing with the Mets is that it's never over. And they were right. Like, they were, again, as I said earlier, you couldn't be any closer than the Mets were today. I mean, you were a check swing going your way away from winning the game. So you're going to blame Lindor for being intentionally walked to the ninth. He's just not that guy. I mean, yeah, if this was the old traditional intentional walk where the guy actually had to throw the 4 pitches, I mean, Francisco Lindor should have been up there swinging, right? But no, again, I didn't think that was a smart move by Seattle. I think we would rather have faced Lindor, but, I mean, they really liked the righty-righty matchup. And, again, I've always been the believer of I just want to face the worst hitter. I don't care if he's right-handed or left-handed. I just want to face the guy who's struggling more. And right now, Lindor had been struggling more than Alonso. And we see Lindor, especially, we saw him do it again today, where he's chasing pitches in the dirt. He's chasing secondary pitches in the dirt. And that's all Diego Castillo was throwing to Alonso, just sliders in the dirt. I mean, that's how he got him on the check swing, slider in the dirt. So I feel like he probably could have got Lindor out with that kind of repertoire. And I just don't think you want to face Pete Alonso. Even when Alonso's struggling, he just always has that power that when he connects, that baseball is going to travel a good amount. And like I said, he's not a guy that needs juice balls. So that's always something that you would consider. But and even the Mariners playing the infield in, it was just so close and so many different points in that 9th inning that you really feel like the Mets had a chance. Frustrating, but you know what? As long as they just keep it up, you're not to be too discouraged. It was just a tough day for the pitching. I mean, Carrasco didn't have it. Obviously, the bullpen didn't have it. It took the offense a while to really wake up and string together a really nice inning. They had a couple of good innings sprinkled here and there, but then there was that point where after they had that big inning against Robbie Ray, he got in a groove and retired a bunch of batters in a row. So that's something that you wanted to avoid. I mean, you really just want to keep the pressure on him because they really had him on the ropes. And this guy was out here grunting the whole time. And now let's get to the one last thing before I go. Paul freaking Sewald. What the heck was that? I just don't understand this whole Paul Sewald thing right now where all of a sudden he's like, oh, Mets made a mistake, get rid of me. Ha, ha, ha. Where's the haters? Where's the haters? Like, dude, you were terrible. Like, you weren't good. Like, the Mets gave up on me. How could they? Like, Sewald had years to prove something, and he was not good. The Mets tried everything they could with Paul Sewald. They tried changing his arm slot. They tried changing the type of pitches he throws. They tried so many different things with this guy. And Mickey Callaway put him out there year after year, and he was not getting the job done. All of a sudden, he goes to Seattle and becomes a good pitcher. Dude, you are not the first, and you certainly will not be the last of New York Mets who went to another team, and all of a sudden they kind of tinkered with something, and now all of a sudden they're a really productive player. Like that, and that just happens. So Met fans, this Paul Sewald left didn't bother me. I don't care. When he comes back, I don't boo him because I don't care about Paul Sewald. And even when he came in today, I didn't really hear a loud boo. And when he got the job done, I didn't hear a loud boo either. So I just don't understand why Paul Sewald all of a sudden wants to act like he's this tough, amazing guy. Like, oh my gosh, I would just went over there and punched him in the face. I was like, dude, you're talking all this crap. You're not even that good. That really was crazy. He swung. I know there was the one pitch. It was, I think, in the 3-1 count. It was the second strike. I couldn't believe Alonso swung at that one because what was weird about the whole Alonso-Diego Castillo exchange, we'll end it right here, but he only threw sliders. And a lot of them, like you said, were the left-handed batter's batter box. And Alonso, he would swing at one, then lay off at one, and swing at one and lay off at one. So I felt like Alonso should have caught on to what Castillo was doing, that this guy was only throwing sliders to the same spot over and over, but eventually he didn't. I mean, exactly. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to face Seattle again, but it won't be in New York. But again, I can care less about Paul Sewald. I hope he if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. But we'll end it right here. Andrew Acevedo, he's going to have a stream on his channel, The J-Rod Show. Go tune into that right now, as I will end it here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Mets Weekly on Thursday. Leave a like if you're here now or you're watching in the future. And until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy.